It's rare that the sequel does justice to the original. It's tough to capture lightning in a bottle twice. It's tough to recreate surprise or suspense or intrigue when the subject matter is repeated. And that's true in movies or books or video games or campus insanity. But since I discussed Evergreen State College last week, several additional elements to the story have developed that I think are at least as compelling as the original story and worthy of a look. On Thursday, June 1st, an anonymous threat against the college was delivered by emergency phone call.
Hello, dispatch, can I help you?
Yes, I'm on my way to Evergreen University now with a .44 Magnum. I'm going to execute as many people on that campus as I can get a hold of. You have that? What's going on there, you communist scumbag town?
College administration took that threat seriously and closed campus on Thursday the 1st and Friday the 2nd. It's a threat that hasn't materialized, but the threat that does persist is the intellectual threat to reason and decency. A threat far more dire than we realized even after observing the original craziness at the school. When I finished the last video, I was under the impression that the insanity was limited to a small group of unruly students being enabled by a cowardly college president. There's no way the academic faculty supports these brats, right? Wrong. On Friday the 2nd, over 50 faculty members, that's roughly 1/5 of the overall academic staff at the school, plus additional administrative staff, issued a letter to all faculty calling for a disciplinary investigation against exiled Professor Brett Weinstein, famous for his crime of wanting all races to be able to enter and leave campus at their own discretion. Weinstein is to be punished because he has endangered faculty, staff, and students, making them targets of white supremacist backlash by promulgating misinformation in public emails, on national television, in news outlets, and on social media. That language may sound crazy, and it is, but keep in mind this professor is one of the signatories.
The white supremacy that lives and breathes within every single white person standing here right now.
But an anonymous threat to turn campus into a Wild West duel zone and a faculty-sponsored hunt for the wicked witch of white people should be able to go to school too might be the benchmark for sanity in this follow-up story, not the benchmark for craziness. These things aren't normal, to be clear, but they seem normal compared to the feature of this sequel story. There's a roaming, bat-wielding, androgynous vigilante mob of color seeking campus justice against a rogue Limp Bizkit fan chalk artist. Allow me to set the context in which that's supposed to make sense. You'll recall that despite college president George Bridges' total concession on nearly every demand the mob had for him, there was one point on which he could not concede: the general issue of campus policing. Students issued him a demand not to expand police forces, that campus police sell their lethal weapons, and for the implementation of a student collective as an alternative to policing. President Bridges was unable to accommodate that demand, and for that, he was met with boos and desperate pleas for safety.
Given their responsibilities, they have to have firearms. Now,
but we all know you don't have to care what George says. You just tell him to shut up, and you do whatever you want.
No, fuck you, George. We don't want to hear a goddamn thing you have to say.
And if what you want is student policing on campus, George isn't going to stand in your way. And he hasn't stood in their way, according to testimony from Professor Weinstein and others.
The police called me up on the Wednesday, just after the Tuesday on which I had been challenged in my class, and asked me, "Are you on campus?" And I didn't have class. I said, "No, I'm not on campus." They said, "Don't come to campus." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because the protesters are searching car to car for what they describe as an individual, and we think it's you. And the college has told us to stand down. We can't protect you."
So, based on what we've seen so far, what might an Evergreen student vigilante social justice police squad look like? Yeah, pretty much exactly what you'd expect. It's like The Walking Dead was rewritten by Anita Sarkeesian.
You don't really think that you were gonna get through this without being punished now, did you?
Fuck you and fuck the police!
But at least we know in this apocalypse, there's plenty of food to go around. And we know this isn't just some photo op. That mob has been patrolling campus, cracking down on wrongthink, according to both reports and video evidence. The video evidence we have is supplied by one of the bounties this mob hunts, a freshman resistance fighter named Nolan, who expresses himself through pro-Limp Bizkit campus chalk tagging. Nolan covers the actual graffiti the mob has painted around campus with alternative messages like "We want to learn," "College is not a safe space," and of course, Limp Bizkit did nothing wrong. The Limp Bizkit theme may be confusing, but Nolan has his reasons. I wrote it to prove these guys aren't here to have a discussion. They are here to violently bully the campus into submission, he says. He doesn't counter the group with explicitly political messaging, just pro-Limp Bizkit sentiments. And he doesn't meet their physical aggression with physical resistance. Being a white male, I felt if I was to attack back, it would be very bad, Nolan says. That situation could be flipped very poorly in my direction. And thus Limp Bizkit has become somewhat of a local adaptation of Pepe the Frog, an innocuous symbol of resistance that prompts irrational response. Here's the first case of one such prompting. Nolan is seen here simply exercising his right to deliver the holy word of Durst.
I'm tired of all these Limp Bizkit rumors. We should all just be able to enjoy Fred Durst equally.
And the mob pours water on him.
Woo! We're getting feisty today.
They physically direct him away.
Green Day fans, am I right?
Rude. Rude! Rude! Rude. My body might shock.
Get the fuck out of here! Fucking leave!
What do you have against Fred Durst? He did nothing to you.
And they throw his glasses on the ground.
Whoa! 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 Whoa!
And Nolan's artwork does have a point. This footage is much funnier set to a Limp Bizkit soundtrack. Don't get mad at me for ableism. Blame the comment section for that one. And also for calling her R2 Dindu.
Fuck you!
For his resistance on that day and in days thereafter, the mob has continued to target Nolan. He was identified as a Nazi in a student Facebook group. His Pepe artwork put him under threat of violence. He says one night he woke up to 16 texts calling him cis scum and a white supremacist. Nevertheless, he persisted. But not without challenge. On Thursday of last week, the mob waited for Nolan outside of his dorm room until he left to catch a bus for dinner. The mob aggressively followed Nolan and his friend, trying to grab his friend's phone and claiming recording the encounter is illegal.
Guys. This is public campus.
No permission to film. That is illegal.
Smile.
That is totally illegal.
But stalking, threatening, smashing personal property, these things are all fine. The real crime is recording it.
It's illegal to assault people.
But lucky for Nolan, R2 was kind enough to escort him off campus before Tumbler Negan came by to take half his privilege. At this point, I think an emergency visit from the real Negan and Lucille might be the only thing short of the nuclear option that can get this campus situation under control. But I can leave this edition of the Evergreen Report on a note of at least some optimism. In response to this nonsense, the school's residential director emailed students directing the Clown Patrol to lay down its arms. The use of bats or similar instruments is not productive, she writes. The bats must be put away immediately in order to protect all involved. A student group issued an open letter condemning the protesters and the administration's inaction in creating a campus environment unsafe for students, and the school's board of trustees issued a statement calling protester behavior unacceptable and defending the values of free speech, intellectual inquiry, tolerance, and inclusiveness. But don't get too excited, because the same letter also praises President George Bridges' unmatched leadership, with a pledge to continue working with him. I'm not sure how you can call the action of the protesters unacceptable, but then praise the man who enables the unacceptable behavior without opposition. But hey, at least we can all agree there's a line to be drawn against roaming, genderqueer, baseball bat-wielding, wrong-think enforcement squads. If we can all agree that's too far, that's some progress against these oppressive progressives. And in that context, I'll take whatever progress we can get. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel always. Appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to come hang out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Okay, bye.